Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field, frozen with snow.
I had not thought of violets of late, the shy wild kind that spring beneath your feet, and wistful April days when lovers mate, and wandering through the fields in rapture sweet. And the thought of violence meant florist shops and bows and pins and perfume paper fine and garish lights and minced little fops and cabarets and soaps and deadening wine. So far from sweet real things, my thoughts had strayed. I had forgot about wide fields and clear brown streams, the perfect loveliness that God had made. Wild violets shy and heaven mountain dreams, and unwittingly you made me think of violets again. My soul's forgotten gleam.
Nay, while we approach each other, be unkind, for there's no plane on which we two shall meet. Let's both forgive, forget, for both were blind, and life is of a day, and time is fleet. And I am a fire, swift to flame and burn, melting with elements overhead, while you are water in an earthly urn, all pure but heavy, and of hue like lead.
The pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. We real cool, we left school, we lurk late, we strike straight, we sing sin, we thin gin, we jazz June, we die soon.
Someone leans near and sees the salt your eyes have shed. You wait, longing to hear words of reason, love, or play, to lash and lull you towards the day. Silence needs your fare, of crumbled star ash sifting down, clouding the room's hair and hair. You shore up your heart to run, to stay, but no sign of design marks the narrow way. And on your skin, a breath caresses the salt your eyes have shed. And you hear a voice so clear, you will never die again. Once more you know, you will never die again.
Welcome, Panther family, friends, and loved ones. I am Marquin Booker, student body president, and I am beyond excited to be a part of this transcending moment. For years, Prairie View A&M University has had a community of poets, writers, and artists. PV continues to support our students in multiple ways of creative thinking to assist them in their individual expression. With the partnership of PVAMU and Nikki Giovanni, this is just the beginning of a great collaboration that will continue to encourage our students to pursue their writing careers. In light of that, I say thank you for all who have made this possible.
Good evening and welcome one and all to this inaugural offering of the Toni Morrison Writing Program at Prairie View A&M University. In launching this program, we are proud to honor not only the program's namesake, but also the generous donor who made the program possible. The Toni Morrison Writing Program at Prairie View is, in fact, the gift of one of Morrison's Princeton students, writer and philanthropist Mackenzie Scott. Upon the dedication of Morrison Hall at Princeton, Scott spoke movingly about Morrison's influence on her own work and expressed to her on that occasion her gratitude for the guidance and encouragement provided her by Morrison. I like to believe that Morrison had an even broader and deeper impact on Mackenzie than just with regard to her writing. Could Morrison's influence account for some of Scott's philanthropic focus, including her gift of over $500 million to HBCUs including Prairie View, and to even more organizations that focus on the underserved. These acts are a testament, perhaps, to the power and influence writers can have on human understanding and action. One of the most endearing qualities of Toni Morrison was her fiercely dead-on vision. She had eyes that could see through falseness, see through subterfuge, see through vulnerability, see through all of the many pretenses that human beings deploy in defense of their interests. This could make her an intimidating and fearsome presence for those who feared discovery. Our primary purpose in creating this program, in Toni Morrison's name, is to provide visibility to the importance of African-American writers like Morrison, who expose the truth of our lives. For every Hughes, Ellison, Morrison, and Giovanni, there are countless young people inspired by them to tell their own stories, stories of lives lived, broken, and healed, stories of disappointments and triumphs, stories of a people overcoming still. Morrison could surely inspire others through her fierce vision, creating unique characters who spoke to us in enduring ways. She taught us how to look past the mere appearance of things. In her presence, one often wondered how to garner just a fraction of the insight that she exhibited, seemingly without effort. I recall how infantile I was to think that I could do so. Her home in Sneaton's Landing burned down one Christmas. And when it was rebuilt, she moved into her rebuilt home, leaving some time on the lease of a house she was using near New York. She suggested that I rent the house for the summer. And I complied, thinking that by merely being in the house, sitting at the desk where she once wrote, and peering out over the tea roses, that this writerly ambiance would inspire me to write in the same vein. Mere mortals dare not presume to tread in the footprints of titans, but we can try. And that too is the purpose of this program, to show that we can try. It seems especially fitting that we open this program with the help of another titan of African-American letters, Nikki Giovanni, who has been similarly recognized for the work she has inspired across the decades. I leave it to others to introduce her tonight, but I want to say to Nikki how very pleased I am to have her with us as our inaugural writer in residence. Nikki, Toni would have been immensely pleased and honored that you are leading off this effort. Toni's fierce vision was in evidence the last time I saw her at her home in New York. As we were speaking, she was staring across the Hudson River that ran past her home. At the same time, I noticed a band of rain clouds moving down the Hudson from the Tappan Zee Bridge, a very striking vision. So much like Toni, I thought, these clouds bearing torrential, cleansing rain. Her work showed us aspects of ourselves we could not see and cleansed us of doubt about the majesty of our lives. She came to teach us, and we are the better for it. She came to champion the truth of who we are and do justice to our stories. Now, through the program sponsored by the Toni Morrison Writing Program, we will endeavor to do justice to that splendid legacy. I thank Dr. Thomas Smith for directing and giving so much energy to the launch of this program. We could not have found a better person to give shape to the idea of a Toni Morrison program. So welcome again, and please now enjoy the program. Thank you.
I was meaningless, and I wondered if life would give me a chance to mean. I found a new life in the withdrawal from all things not like my image. When I was a teenager, I used to sit on front porch steps conversing the gym teacher's son with embryonic eyes about the essential essence of the universe, recognizing the basic powerlessness of me. But then I went to college, where I learned that just because everything I was unreal, I could be real, and not just real through withdrawal into emotional crosshairs or colored bourgeois intellectual pretensions, but from involvement with things approaching reality.
If quotes were guides, your words would be the scrolled map, bringing humanity to the right path. Following your stories like a Harriet Tubman compass, traversing through your verbal treks to search for the northern moss at any cost, because most known poetic explorers before us were more Lewis and Clark than they were for us. Through the thicket of the trees and woods, I understood that after procuring a map, the key was to read the legend. All eyes on me brought my eyes to all eyes on you. Thank you for your prophetic legacy. That birth from the poetic pregnancy. You speak at your own pace, and I take this with urgency. Your messages are en route, always, and in all ways, they are words that move forward with my imagination. I would just view your calligraphy as a constellation, as a consolation for the night to subside to the bright. I placed trust into your GPS. So when the Giovanni positioning system says I must read 3 of your lists, eventually I knew that I'll get it right. Starting my journey, I would find some trips are just meant for the ego. So I packed light and paid no mind to the legs I would happen to grow onto the goalpost. Right? I collected my bearings to hold close, my own flag and my own pole. Your quotes are guides. Your craft is charted. Your words are the helm, and your example is how I started. I subscribe to this, right? With each of your stanzas and lines, the X marks the spot when the treasure is golden and you don't miss. You have kept pace with the times while still not being beholden. Even if that's to yourself. Thank you.
Celebrated writer and winner of 7 NAACP Image Awards, the Carl Sandburg Award, the Langston Hughes Award for Distinguished Contributions to Arts and Letters, and the first Rosa Parks Women of Courage Award. Inaugural writer-in-residence of the Toni Morrison Writing Program, poetically, Nikki Giovanni.
I am so pleased to be a part now of the Prairie View A&M family. I'm so pleased that Dr. Simmons invited me among her group, I'm sure, to be a part of this. I was a friend of Toni Morrison, and I hope that I'm a friend of Black Americans, because one of the things that we need is to reach out constantly to each other. I think the most important part of our lives is the words that we know. And I've enjoyed, I love the spirituals. And I have enjoyed particularly now because I'm not a nice person, and you'll get to know me and you'll know that I'm not a nice person. But there's a spiritual that says God's going to set this world on fire. Yes, yes, yes. And then I watch all of the West Coast burning, and I watch Australia burning, and I watch Greek burning. And I think, goody, because you shouldn't treat people the way you have treated us and the way you have treated people who look like us. you should have to pay for that. That's not a cheap price. I've kind of enjoyed watching things burn down. I'm sorry about the sequoias, because the sequoias are good people. The sequoias are great trees, but I'm happy about the rest of it, because you get sick of seeing everybody being pushed down and down and down. What we have to fight back with, and we must fight back, are words. And I think that it's so important that our youngsters realize what words mean. There are fights going on right now about who can say what to whom, but words are important, and you fight words with words. You don't necessarily have to be polite, you don't have to be kind, but you have to fight back, and you have to have something to say, which means you have to read. And I'm so extremely pleased to be to be here at the Toni Morrison Writing Program, because what Toni has taught all of us is that you have to read. And if you read, you will then find the words to say what you have to say. I say to my students as I start, I teach at Virginia Tech, and I'm in Appalachia. And I say to my students on the first day of class, I ask, what's the #1 bestseller? What's the #1 best-selling book in America? What's the number? And not one of them knows. And when I come to Prairie View, I'm going to ask the same question. What's the #1 best-selling book? Nobody will know. So why are you trying to be something that you don't know what it is? Has it ever occurred to you that what you want to do is to be the best you? And anybody else that can find their way to you, that's fine. But most writers, and somebody needs to remind you, so I'm here to remind you, most writers are not even thought of until 100 years from now. A lot of writers are not even read until 100 years. Where would we be if Anne Frank hadn't kept her diary? And it wasn't a complicated diary. It was today we ate, today I smiled at, today I had a crush on. It's an ordinary situation. And you and I have ordinary situations, but you and I also have dreams, and we have imaginations. We have, what will we want to be? Not, oh, I have to have a job, or I have to, have a career, none of that. Just what's comfortable to me. And I think that I think it's very important as writers that you have to find that comfort. I am, of course, a good cook. And I so miss Maya Angelou, because Maya and I used to argue about who could cook. And Maya always thought she was a better cook, but actually, I'm sorry she's gone, but I was a better cook. But I remember that Oprah was down at Maya's at one point, and Maya called me. I was only 2 hours away. I live here in Blacksburg. And Maya called me and said, Oprah's here. I want you to come down because you're always talking about how well you cook. I said, yeah, I'll come down. I'll be there in a couple of hours. And I took a rack of lamb and I cooked it. And of course, it was beautiful. As you know, Maya was in a wheelchair, and her kitchen was a professional kitchen. So she couldn't go into because she had oxygen. So she only could stand out, and her gas stove and stuff. So I cooked it and put it on the table, and it was beautiful. I gotta tell you, it was beautiful. And we cut it, and Maya just looked at it, and she says, well, it needs a little salt. I said, girl, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. It's the best lamb that you've ever had. And I had a good time. We cooked together, we laughed together, we talked together, we gossiped together. And you, as youngsters coming out of college, are going to be finding people in the same way. Some you're going to like, some you're not. Some stories you're going to want to tell, some you're not sure that you can or should. Your job is not to let somebody push you into some position that doesn't make sense to you. Your job is to find the words coming out of not only your mouth, but your heart. And speaking, when we look at Toni, I have asked that we read her first book, The Bluest Eye, which is an incredibly, incredibly sad book. I mean, you know that because most of you have read it. It's a very sad book. And yet, Toni knew that this was the book coming out of her heart. This was the book she had to write. And it took her 6 years to write it, but she wrote it. And she decided, I don't have to pretend that Black people are wonderful. I just have to say, this is the truth that we find. And this is the love that I offer. So when we have that little girl, it opens with the death. It opens with the death of the trees. Nothing, the marigolds didn't grow that year. But what grew was, of course, Toni Morrison. And what will grow someplace is us, is us. You're here not only at Prairie View, but you're here in right outside of Houston, which Houston needs a lot of work. I'm sure you know that. I'm sure I'm not telling you something. Oh, Nikki saying something that I didn't know. Houston needs a lot of work. And Prairie View is going to have to continue to reach out to the people, to the community in Houston, to reach out and embrace them because they have stories to tell. And all of that rain that keeps coming down, some of the stories are going to be funny. Some of the stories are going to be sad. Some of the stories are going to be beautiful. A lot of the stories are going to be the blues. Some are going to be spirituals. But Houston has something else to offer. And Prairie View has something to say to Houston. You are our sister and brother. We are embracing you. And we have another way of saying to them also, we accept the love you give us. It's another world that's coming. And it's another world that is incredibly, incredibly important. And I wish all of us the very best. I am very, very proud. I think if I could give a holler up to heaven for a minute, hey, this is Nikki, what's going on? I can talk to Toni and Maya and say, what are you all doing? Well, I know what a couple of them we're doing because Toni drank vodka and Maya drank bourbon. So I know that they'd be sitting up there saying, uh-huh. And if my mom was not busy, she'd be drinking a beer with them because that's what mommy drank. And there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, there's everything right with it. At some point, there has to be something that you do that embraces you. And I'm serious about that. And that's the fun of it. We've gone through 200 years and we're going to continue to go through. And we're going to go through with the grace that we have gone. We are the most graceful people on earth. And I know, as we all do, I'm a space freak. And we know as we're looking now, this is the time of year, you can look up and you'll see Mars is there. You can see Mars, you all can see Venus. And as we look up into space, we know that what is needed in space are Black women. And somebody said, well, Nikki, why are you saying that? It's because Black women find in the galaxy, Black women can get along with everybody. And people will say, no, if you go up in the galaxy, there'll be aliens up there and they'll bother you. And I'd like to point out, we have lived with aliens in the United States for over 200 years, and especially the last 4. So aliens cannot possibly bother us because we're used to aliens. And we'll get up there and we'll teach the aliens how to fry a little chicken and how to pull a little chitlins out and make some food out of that. We'll teach them how to sing a song or two, because Black women are one of the real graces of earth. Whatever wonderful is on earth, it comes from us. And that's not to say that Black men are not. I'm not picking on Black men, but Black women are incredibly, incredibly important. And I think that it's always important that we as Black women remember how important we are, that if you crack an egg, and there's nothing wrong with the white of the egg. You go to Starbucks and they have an egg that they cook. But if you crack the egg, what's important and what's going to make the life is the yolk. And we are the yolk of earth. And I think it's so important that we remember that this is what we do. We bring the life. And I'm so pleased to be a part of this. I'm so pleased to be a part of Prairie View. I'm a Fisk University graduate, and I'm very, very proud to see that Howard University has now produced the Vice President of the United States. And I'm glad she's an AKA, but we can't all be Deltas, but she could work on it, but we can't all make it. Somebody's gonna get me for that one. But if it hadn't been for those 19 Deltas who decided that they were going to march, that Susan B. Anthony's racism was not going to stop them from going forward for their vote. And that is what made it possible for us to come here. I saw that you had Tupac Shakur. I have a tattoo. I only have one, and it says Thug Life. And I have it because when Tupac was assassinated, I didn't know, because my son is still alive and I'm very lucky, but I couldn't imagine how Afeni Shakur must have felt losing her son. And I wanted to let her know that she is not alone. I did not know Afeni. I did not know Tupac. I only know the work that they did, but I didn't want her to feel that she was alone. And I think as we are here now in 2021, and as we go forward, we have to keep letting each other know we're not alone. We have each other. We have somebody that we can count on. Can't count on everybody, because some people are fools and some people are stupid. You know, you're basic, but some people are wonderful. And you have to keep your eye on who's wonderful and who's not. And once you find who's wonderful, make a friend. Don't be afraid to be a friend. Don't be afraid to take some steps. If people will laugh at you, oh, I don't know why you're wasting your, I love that one. Don't you just waste that. People will say to you, they don't know. Nobody knows how much time any of us have on earth. I'm very fortunate. I'm 78 years old. I don't know. I would have never thought I would have 78 years. Nobody knows. But people will turn around and say, well, I don't know why you're wasting your time with them, as if they know how much time you have to waste. It's your time, and you must use it to make whatever sense out of it that it makes to you. It's your time. It's your love. It's your words. And this is what we hope. We are helping you to take that step forward. And this is what writing does, and this is what reading does, and this is what love does for us. Take that time. It's your time. Don't let somebody tell you what to do with your time. It's your time. And I'm just pleased to be here, to be a part of it. I live in Appalachia. I was born in Knoxville, Tennessee. I am now living in Blacksburg, Virginia. And if you come here, there'll be a sign that will say Appalachian Trail. And I'm mentioning that because the Appalachian Trail was part of where the enslaved, as they escaped slavery, some did, some didn't, but as they escaped slavery, they came up the Appalachian Trail. And the people in Appalachia, they were the white people, the Irish, as the Black enslaved came up, it was the Irish that helped them go into freedom. And I think we have to remember that. I'm always so sad that Appalachia has allowed the foolishness of Donald Trump or something to take away the courage that it took for them. And Appalachia, as you also know, West Virginia took away. West Virginia said, we will not send our sons to die so that the Shenandoah can have slaves. And that was a very courageous thing. They did not do it. They said, no, we're going to separate from Virginia, which of course saved the Civil War. But there was also something, and I'm very, very proud of them. There was also a group that stayed. They were not cowardly. They were not stupid. They were not scared, but they stayed. They had worked this land and they stayed. And those people worked the land. They built communities. They built churches. They built homes. They built schools. They did what they had to do. I am a Fisk University graduate. And if somebody had not stayed, if those Blacks had not stayed in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Texas, if they had not stayed, we would not have the communities that we have. So I do love Harriet Tubman. Who doesn't? I think it's incredible that she would go back and continue to get people. Who wouldn't love Frederick Douglass? He's cute as a button. Who wouldn't have loved Frederick Douglass? But the people who stayed, we have to recognize what a job they did. They were not run away. The people who stayed built the Black community, built the school, built what you and I have. These were great people. And I think that we have to recognize that we Black Americans come from Black people who are great. And we have every reason to be proud of them. We have every reason to look into what did they give the world? Well, we gave them first and foremost a song. And we gave a song that is sung now all over the world. We started with our spiritual, but the song, you can go to China and somebody's going to try to rap. You can go, it doesn't matter where you are. Somebody is trying to sound like us. I think it's wonderful. I think it's really, we gave a song. We also showed people how to cook. We also showed how to get along with each other. So I'm very proud, as I'm sure we all are, to be a Black American and to recognize the contributions that our people have made to not just this country, but to the world. I think it's so wonderful. Black lives do matter. And I think that those young women who started Black Lives Matter recognized the global, my generation recognized a civil rights, but Black Lives Matter is global. And I think that's just incredible because again, one of the things that's going to happen next is that we're going into the galaxy and Black lives will matter in the galaxy. And we will meet what is going to be called aliens, but they're not alien to us. They're just somebody we haven't met yet. So I'm very, very proud to think about where we're going and what we're going to do. And I'm very proud to be a part of Prairie View. And I thank you so much for allowing that.
What a wonderful message from an amazing woman. And why does it not surprise me that you have a tattoo that says Thug Life? This is a special honor for us all, but especially for me because I am one of those young girls inspired by Nikki Giovanni. My love of poetry was ignited by what my grandma called that sassy poem, Ego Tripping. I won my first poetry contest with that, and it was the catalyst for my career as a poet and writer. So I give you a personal thank you. I am Rashonda Tate. I'm a member of the Toni Morrison Writing Program Advisory Board. And at this time, we want to have a brief conversation with Nikki Giovanni. And I will start with a quote that comes to mind when I think of you, Miss Giovanni. Well-behaved women rarely make history. From the beginning, your poems were coined militant poetry. You were not a woman to be put in a box. Is that something that you personally set out to do, or was it a case of it just who you are comes out in what you write?
It's just what I know. And all I can do, I laugh because I'm a baby sister. And so any baby sisters who are listening right now, they understand your big sister always does better. Your big sister, and in my case, my big sister was pretty. And so we start with that. She had clear skin, which as you can see, I don't. She had dimples, which everybody's like, oh, look at her dimples. So I don't, and they used to tease me. I got the nickname Nikki because they would, they being my parents at this point, they would say, Nikki, can you read? And I would say, no, but Gary can. My sister's name is Gary Ann. Nikki, can you play the piano? No, but Gary can. Nikki, can you dance? Can you tap dance? No, but Gary can. So as a baby sister, I had nothing to do but watch and pay attention to what my big sister did. So what am I going to do? I don't sing. All I have are words. And so that's where they came from. And I didn't see any reason to shy away from my words. I still don't. I think it's very important to know that your words belong to you, and nobody can take that away from you. Nobody should be able to.
Wonderful words to live by. We have a number of students who want to learn from you in the master class. Now, if anyone knows anything about you, this class will not be easy. But what is your goal for the young people, the students here at Prairie View that will come under your tutelage?
My hope, of course, is to utilize their imagination. And I do that. I'm just taking my class right now at Virginia Tech. I've been saving eggs because I like the blue eggs. They're so pretty. And I collected these blue eggs. And I'm taking the blue eggs in and I'm asking my students, and I will ask my master class, what hatched? I gave you an egg, but what hatched? And that's something that they have to make a decision. It's not because the kids are, I don't know. You have to tell me. And I do another thing with my students, and I would love to do it when I come down. I think I get down in the spring. It's just do this. And students invariably say, well, what did you give me? And I said, you tell me, because it's your imagination and it's what you are embracing and it's where you think that you want to go. And that's what my job is, to remind you that, number one, you're not writing because somebody thinks it's a good idea. You're writing because you have something to say. The same way you're singing because you have a voice, or you're dancing because whatever it is that you're doing is what you can do. And it's something that you should be enjoying. And that's, I think, incredibly important. We were talking recently, because I worked with Whitney, with Sissy Houston, with Whitney's mother. And it broke my heart that everybody kept trying to make Whitney. She had a great voice, and then it's like, well, we want another, we need more, we need a better, we need a bigger song, we need more. And of course, we ended up with a body. We ended up burying a very lovely young woman who I would love, personally, I would love to have seen her come to Fisk and been a part of the Fisk Jubilee Singers. I would have just loved for her to do that, because she needed a friend. Anybody that talented needs a friend. And that's what we are here for. We older women are here for, not just to mentor, but to be a friend, just to sit and listen sometimes. That's what we're here for. And I think that we do a pretty good job.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, at this time, Glenn Shaheen, he is a professor of creative writing at Prairie View, has a couple of questions for you.
Hi, Ms. Giovanni. Such an honor to be here and to have this conversation with you. There was recently a blow up on Twitter, and I know you don't do social media, which is probably the best way to live life, where a bunch of poets were arguing that poetry doesn't accomplish anything in the world. And it upset me a little bit as a poet to see other fellow poets trying to argue that poetry is sort of meaningless. But what do you make of it, or when people say that poetry does nothing? I like when you said earlier, fighting words with words. Yeah. When poets fall into this sort of hopeless conversation, what are some things that you say to them?
Well, first of all, I think it's incredibly important to recognize a fool when you hear it. It'll save you a lot of trouble, because you keep hearing this foolishness and you're just wasting your time arguing with them. You should never argue with somebody that you recognize to be a fool. And what they're doing, I don't know, because I don't do social media, because it's wasting your time for somebody to lie to you. If those lives were as wonderful as Facebook or whatever that other thing, Twitter or Instagram, if they were having such a wonderful life, then why are they writing you? You know, people are writing like, oh, last night I had the best sex in the world. Well, if it was that good, why don't you take a shower and leave me alone? But I guess I shouldn't say that. Ruth won't let me come back. But you get tired of people telling their stupid lies. So I didn't hear that. I don't know it. But of course, poetry has been with us forever. Poetry has been with us beyond I wish I knew more Greek. My grandfather taught Latin. And so I do know some Latin. And I grew up in the AME church. So I grew up reading, I'm a big fan of the New Testament. So I grew up with the New Testament. I'm not against the Old Testament, which is mostly in Latin, but I grew up with the New Testament. So when you hear somebody, and I'm not trying to do anybody's religion, because you do what makes you comfortable, but Jesus was a poet. And 2,000 something years later, we're still not just worshiping him, but his words are still comforting us. And I think that's important, but I think more so when he came down from the, and that's a longer thing discussion we can have, but when he came down from the cross and rested for those 3 days, the first person he went to see was Mary Magdalene. And he wanted her to know, it's going to be all right. Don't worry, baby. It's going to be all right. I'm going to heaven and I'm going to take you with me. I just think it's so wonderful that he went to Mary Magdalene, because there's a lot of people he could have gone to. but he went to her because everybody said, oh, Mary Magdalene is a dirty woman. And Jesus said, no, that she's my friend. And I want you to know this is who I love. And it was just so wonderful. And again, he's not fighting with people. He's not having, as you know, when they were standing there and Pontius Pilate is saying, you know, what do you have to say for yourself? And Jesus, no, you don't talk to fools. So he's just standing there and nothing. Not, why should I waste my time talking to a fool? You know, you wouldn't know what I'm saying anyway. And I appreciate that. And I think that we have to, it's something you have to know. It's something you have to believe. And when I started writing, I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I'm glad that people liked it. And I did the best that I could do. And there are times, I gave a speech about 3 weeks ago now, and it was probably the worst speech I've ever given. And I wasn't, you have bad speeches, very seldom, but I was just not feeling well. And I've had some health problems. And I thought, well, the first thing I need to do right now, because I'm standing on the stage. I didn't want to pass out or something, but I thought, well, they need to know I am not feeling well. I want you to know that I'm not. So this is not the best speech I can give, but it's the best speech that I have today. So I'm going to apologize, but this is the best that I can do. And what I wanted to talk about, because we were talking to the architectural students, I saw somebody, see, architecture and of course, as you know, poetry are all the same because we're building things. It's why I love physics. And physics is incredible because physics and jazz are the same thing. It's music and nobody can prove anything about either one. We believe in physics, we believe in jazz, but nobody can prove it. And sometimes you have to say, this is the best. It's not the best ever, but it's the best I can do today. And you have to give yourself credit for that. And if you do that, you'll always be happy with yourself and you'll never listen to fools. It's the truth.
All right, Glenn, do you have another question for her?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna, I wrote down "don't listen to fools" on my, I'm going to take that to heart. It sort of reminds me, I saw this thing the other day. People always in time travel movies are like, oh, you could change if you don't do anything, because if you make the smallest change, the whole world will be different. But you know, us poets, like, we try to make these changes. Think of all the changes that you've made or that anybody can make in several hundred years. Like you said, like, things will be different because of these. You know, we don't have to lift up a mountain, but we can just write, and that's what we can do, and hope that it's good and it touches somebody. I promised I would ask a craft question. I want to ask you about your lines in your poems. You know, and there's some in your most recent collection. There's some prose poems and there's some longer lines, but a lot of the lines that you use are really short. And what is it that drives the line in your poems? Because I'm a long line poet, but I really want to be a short line poet.
That's going to be a hard one, because if we go back to my book Acolytes, for example, very, very long, because I was trying to tell a particular story. And I love acolytes for a lot of reasons. One, the term acolytes, who you follow and how you worship, or how you grow for yourself. But I don't want to say as a Black woman, because I'm sure there are other Black women, but my mother died. It's 13 years ago now, and that was in June. And then my sister died almost a month later. And then my aunt Ann died in August. So I went from burying my mom to burying my sister to burying my aunt, which meant, of course, I had no time to cry. And I don't think it's all Black women, but I think a lot of us, we have work to do. And so we never learn to cry. Well, not learning to cry eventually ended up giving me a seizure. And my doctor said to me, you know, you're having a seizure because you're high blood pressure. And I said, no, my doctor's name is Gregory. I said, no, Gregory, I am having a seizure because I'm holding my tears in and I need to learn to cry. And I said, and I've given you a gift. Now, you probably don't recognize it, but I've given you a gift. And what you have to do is next time somebody comes in here that is like I am, you tell them you have the Nikki. And you tell them to go home and get a glass of champagne and learn to cry. And I did my last two books, A Good Cry, and of course, Make Me Rain, because water is incredibly important. And I wanted to say that not only to you, but to any of us. We have to learn to cry. And if you had said that to me 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that crying was important. I would have thought it was important to get the job done. But I now know you have to let some of that out. You just have to. And so you say the short line, you have to write it as it comes, and then you go, and then you have to believe in what you're doing, and it will do what you want done. And I say that I look at some of my students and I say, you should break that line, because some of the lines you could see, they've just taken it too far. And they're stumbling over themselves. And break that line up and make us have to follow you. You're the train. We're riding with you. It's okay.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we have a question from Deja Paul, who is a Prairie View student. Deja.
Hello. I'm so thankful and honored to be a part of the webinar and to be able to speak and ask a question. My personal question is, I know that you're going to be leading students here at our writing center, and I want to know, especially for our age group, are there certain spaces or particular spaces that you feel that as writers, we can seek out for inspiration?
I think the main thing that you have to remember is that you are your first reader. So we talk about what inspires you. No, you are your first reader. And whatever you have written, you read it. If it makes you laugh, it was funny. It was supposed to be. If it makes you cry, which we were just talking about, it was supposed to be. You have to know what you were writing, and you're writing for yourself, because nobody else may read it. How do you know? Nobody else may ever read it, but you have read it, and you want to say to yourself, well, that's pretty good, or that's not working. And once you get to that, that's not working, it's okay, things don't work. I tried, I was laughing about cooking with Maya, but sometimes the food doesn't, you're baking and you got to talking and sitting around, and you ended up, spoiling, burning the biscuits. Things happen, but you have to say for yourself, this is my poem, this is my story. What am I trying to say here, and why? Why am I trying to say it? There has to be a why. Why do I want to say that? Because there has to be a reason, not just that, oh, I can write it, but why are you writing this? Can I read a poem for a second? The Appalachian Trail is a quilt showing some Americans the way to freedom, freeing other Americans as they stood helping freedom come. The Appalachian Trail is the first American quilt that welcomes all of us as a place to rest, be safe, and find a song to sing. And I wrote that, of course, for the Appalachian, but I wrote that and I knew why I wrote it. And you want to know, why did you do that? What were you trying to say? And I'm trying to say that, first of all, America is a quilt. And the other thing, if it's not a quilt, America is stew. It's just the two things, because it's all made up of little teeny tiny pieces. And I don't have to tell you that because you're in Texas. And look at all that brings Texas together. And it should be, but all you have to do is look at a map and you'll see that we are a bunch of different people. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to hold on to. But it's also important, as we're looking at it, to say, but I am still an important part of that. It might be a quilt, but I'm an important piece of it. I look good. I'm looking good.
That's some wonderful insight, that motivation behind our words that we create, that why. I love that. Deja, do you have another question?
Oh, thank you.
Well, I do have one, Miss Giovanni. I know a lot of people would think that with all of your success, all of these plethora of awards, everything that you have behind you, that it was easy for you, that you just wrote some poems, published them, and stepped out into the limelight. That is not the story, right? You had to self-publish in the beginning.
I did self-publish. And one of the young men that I guess you'd have to say helped mentor, and I love him so much, Kwame Alexander. And in mentoring Kwame, he ended up doing the same thing. He published his first thing, and I said, oh, this works. But I published my first, because who's going to publish a Black woman in 1967? And we went up to Detroit, and there was a Detroit conference. And so a lot of people, I had a little Volkswagen. And so a lot of people drove up. Dudley Randall, you were quoting Gwendolyn Brooks earlier. Gwendolyn Brooks was up there. We all drove up to Detroit. And I had, I think about 50 books. I was selling them for $1. So you see, I'm not going to make enough money to drive back home, but I wanted, that's what I had to offer. I wanted to see who would buy it. And I was able to sell it for $1 and got that sold. And then I made some more and sold it. And finally William Morrow finally asked me, if they could publish it. And I was very glad to have it. And I've been with William Morrow since. So we've been together, what is this now, 52, 53 years. I am a big fan of staying where you are. I'm a big, and nobody asked me that, and I can't answer it for your students at all. But I'm a big fan for staying with what is working for you. Virginia Tech is the first job I've actually had that was a real job. And I was amazed, by the way, I'm as a writer, I'm a performer in many respects. I go as my career. And so I'm on stage and you get paid. Aretha Franklin taught us that, get paid before you go on. And so he said, okay, we're going to do that. But I wasn't used to, a check. And so you get a check that comes in, and I got a check on the first of the month or whatever. And I thought, well, that's really, that's really nice, and put it in the bank and you're going about your business. But then about the middle of the month, I got another check. And my dear friend, and I'd be lost without her, Virginia Fowler, I went to Jenny and I said, well, Jenny, it's a mistake because they already paid me. And she said, no, you get 2 checks. I said, Jimmy, you get 2 checks a month? She said, yeah, and we take care of your health too. And I said, if I'd known that, I'd taken a job a little bit earlier. But it's wonderful. And I've stayed here at Tech because if I wouldn't be happy to come to Tech, then why should I be here? My position is to be happy where you are and to contribute. And I think that I've been able to make some contributions to Virginia Tech. And I'm very proud of that.
Well, we're proud that you're giving some of your time to us here at Prairie View A&M. Our students, I don't even know if they realize how lucky they are. This is a question as we wrap up here that, as an artist, I kind of hate when people ask me this question, but I have to ask, do you have a favorite poem of yours?
Probably, and I get teased about it. Probably Ego Tripping is probably one of my favorite, but I spent most of my teenage years with my grandmother. And so I write a lot about Knoxville, Tennessee. And I'm so glad that I do, because we as my grandmother and grandfather, and I lived with them. His name was John Brown Watson. So you can see that the family always has an attitude. And I'm sure your students should know who John Brown is. That's important. But we lived on Mulvaney Street, and that's the Black community was coming down there. And of course now, typically the university has taken Mulvaney Street away and named it after Pat Summitt. So I'm glad that I love Mulvaney Street, and I'm glad that I write about it, because otherwise it would take it could be forgotten. And there's some things that, and I'll say this to your students, to our students now, we'll talk about it again and again. There are some things that you'll write about that somebody will say, and back to that, well, I wouldn't waste my time, writing about that. It's your time. And you write about what's important to you, because there are going to be things that mean something to you that don't mean anything to anybody else. But if you didn't write about it, they would be forgotten. I mean, we're just recently over in Oklahoma, as you know, we're just recently finding graves. And, you have to be remembered. You have a right to be remembered. I just think that you have the right. But I love ego tripping because it was fun. It was a fun, it is a fun point.
Yes, well, I have to agree with you. It brought me out of my shell. I was a deathly shy child until someone put ego tripping in front of me. I think it brings out the best in anyone that recites it.
Thank you very much.
We're just about out of time. Do you have any closing words?
Well, I do want very much to thank Prairie View for inviting me. And I am now a part of the Prairie View family, and I am glad that the Prairie View family is a part of me. We at Virginia Tech are always looking for contributions for other people, that it's important that you maybe remember that we're here as you think about where you're going for your MFA or from something. I want you to know that we're here, because it's not a lot of Black people at Virginia Tech, but you don't need a lot of Black people to do some work. So I think that that's important. And I was very proud. I was talking to the president. We had breakfast the other morning, and I mentioned to him that I was so proud that Prairie View had invited me to be a part of it, and that I hope that Virginia Tech really let Prairie View know, as they should, all of the HBCUs, how important it is that we become colleagues together, that we become brothers and sisters. It's very important. And it's not, I guess this is not like, oh my goodness, she said something intelligent, but it's good to find something to love and to not be afraid of loving it. That's good. No matter what color, no matter what gender, it's very important that whatever you love it, and don't let anybody take it away from you.
Wonderful. And we love that you are sharing your time with us this evening. Thank you so much. At this time, I want to bring up Dr. Thomas Smith, who is the director of the Toni Morrison Writing Program, to close everything out. Thank you, Ms. Giovanni. I'm honored.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. What a beautiful, beautiful evening. September 27, 2021, at a place to which I always refer as the brightest sun in the southwestern sky, Prairie View A&M University. You can mark it awe-inspiring, mark it extraordinary, mark it a component of the reimagining of this citadel of liberty and learning. President Simmons, best president in America on all counts, you are unrelenting in your pursuit of a whole new world for our students. You do believe our students have the capability to perfect their thinking and writing, which are invaluable tools for finding and expressing their voice. You see their futures as next generation Toni Morrisons, Nikki Giovanni's, Sonia Sanchez's, James Baldwin's, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou's, and so on. Thank you. Ms. Mackenzie Scott, for investing in the belief that HBCUs remain treasures, not only to sustain them, be sustained, but to be advanced. Ms. Scott was overjoyed to learn that the program would bear the name of her Princeton teacher and mentor, the one and only Toni Morrison. For her extravagant generosity, we thank her. Oh, what a beautiful mind. Tonight, Ms. Giovanni, you took us on a journey. In one moment, we were reflecting. In another one, we were imagining. In another, we were laughing. And still another, we were wrestling with complex, sometimes polemic issues. But never in your entire career have you been apologetic. Ms. Giovanni, you are the genuine article. The PV students enrolled in Wednesday's masterclass, they can't wait for the bell to ring. Here you are, a legendary poet, essayist, educator, activist, with walls of awards, a treasure trove of publications, name recognition around the world. And here we come. They charge me up with making the ask. I get the one, to be the ask, to ask. Scared to death, scared to death. I ask very meekly, Miss Giovanni, would you accept the honor of being our inaugural Toni Morrison Writing Program Writer in Residence? I paused. I waited a couple of days. Your friend and representative, Dr. Jenny Fowler, called and she said to me, Nikki is excited. And of course, we were elated. The word from President Simmons was one word, super. With all that is within us at Prairie View, we thank you. To our viewing audience this evening, a shout out to Olympia Rahim and the Detroit Nikki Watch Party that's going on there. All of you who have joined and enjoyed the evening are without question proponents of the best in education. Your love and esteem for our program's namesake, Toni Morrison, and for our writer in residence, Nikki Giovanni, are palpable. At the forefront of this program are intellectual development and cultivation of the sensibilities. Thanks to my guides, Provost James Palmer and Dean Dory Gilbert. Thanks to the Office of the President, Ms. Andrea Sankey, program participants, SGA President Marquin Booker, PVAMU alumnus, Emmanuel Lee Bean, the Houston Poet Laureate, renowned writer, Rashonda Tate, our faculty, to Dr. Shaheen and Ms. Daisha Paul, the students in the master class, the concert chorale, and what a planning committee. A special shout out to Special Events and Protocol Director, Ms. Carol Campbell, assisted by Mr. John Briscoe, Ms. Lisa Fields, and to Marketing and Communications Director, Ms. Candace Johnson, assisted by Mr. Nicholas Hunt and Ms. Marquita Shallow. The Center for Instructional Innovation and Technology Services, Director, Ms. Charlene Stubblefield, assisted by Mr. Jeffrey Hampton, and the entire planning committee. A special shout out to you, Dr. Virginia. Jenny Fowler, you're the technology guru on the east side of this affair. Please watch our website and social media for upcoming events in November, February, and April. There'll be powerful programs jointly sponsored by the Toni Morrison Writing Program and the Ruth J. Simmons Center for Race and Justice. In February, February is the birth month of the late Toni Morrison. We'll honor her in a special way with none other than Nikki Giovanni, who will bring friends at the center of that celebration. Stay tuned. Please now receive the Chorale of Chorales, the award-winning PVAMU Concert Chorale, under the direction of Dr. Ajan Taylor, performing Wake Me Lord by Uzi Brown Jr.